The contrast this morning could not be more clear. Nikki Haley announces that she will be suspending her campaign. President Biden issues a very dignified statement that there will be a place for Nikki Haley supporters in his campaign. Donald Trump issues a statement saying how he, in all caps, trounced Nikki Haley and how her supporters need to now get on board. Let me show you this contrast right now so you can see for yourself. Here's the statement that was made by Donald Trump. Nikki Haley got trounced last night in record-setting fashion, despite the fact that Democrats, for reasons unknown, are allowed to vote in Vermont and various other Republican primaries. Much of her money came from radical left Democrats, as did many of her voters, almost 50% according to the polls. At this point, I hope she stays in the race and fights it out until the end. I'd like to thank my family, friends, and the great Republican Party for helping me to produce by far the most successful Super Tuesday in history, and would further like to invite all of the Haley supporters to join the greatest movement in the history of our nation. And then he puts this all in caps. Biden is the enemy. He is destroying our country. Make America great again! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. He doesn't say any other things about Nikki Haley. He doesn't say anything in any dignified way, but why would he? He's Donald Trump. Here's the statement from the Biden-Harris campaign on Nikki Haley's withdrawal from the Republican presidential primary. Quote, "It takes a lot of courage to run for president. That's especially true in today's Republican Party, where so few dare to speak the truth about Donald Trump. Nikki Haley was willing to speak the truth about Trump, about the chaos that always follows him, about his inability to see right from wrong, about his cowering before Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump made it clear he doesn't want Nikki Haley's supporters. I want to be clear. There is a place for them in my campaign. I know there is a lot we won't agree on, but on the fundamental issues of preserving American democracy, on standing up for the rule of law, on treating each other with decency and dignity and respect, on preserving NATO and standing up to America's adversaries, I hope and believe that we can find common ground. We all know this is no ordinary election, and the stakes for America could not be higher. I know the Democrats and Republicans and independents disagree on many issues and hold strong convictions. That's a good thing. That's what America stands for. But I also know this. What unites Democrats and Republicans and independents is a love for America. I think that is a very powerful statement, and that's what we talk about here on the MeidasTouch Network all the time, bringing people together, and how this election in 2024 is not really a Democrat v. Republican, liberal, progressive v. conservative. It's pro-democracy made up of moderate conservatives and mainstream Republicans and independents and people not affiliated with political parties and progressives and liberals and former Republicans, not the MAGA mutation, and Democrats and independents, all kind of joining together to support our democracy. And it's okay that we disagree on issues, and we can disagree strongly on issues. But on the fundamental things that's being discussed there in President Biden's statement, we need to work together as Americans. Here's what President Biden also posted. You don't have to agree with me on everything to know MAGA extremism is a threat to this country. We need everyone on board. Join our campaign. And then this is showing what Donald Trump wrote, Nikki Birdbrain Haley is very bad for the Republican Party and indeed our country. Her false statements, derogatory comments, and humiliating public loss is demeaning to true American patriots. Her anger should be aimed at her third-rate political consultants and, more importantly, crooked Joe Biden and those that are destroying our country, not the people who will save it, and that's in caps. I knew Nikki well. She was average at best, is not the one to take on world leaders, and she never did. I mean, pause there. I mean, she was your ambassador to the United Nations. She worked for you in a high-level position. That was up to me. And that is why they respected the United States. When I ran for office and won, I noticed that the losing candidate's donors would immediately come to me and want to help out. This is standard politics, but no longer for me. Anybody that makes a contribution to Birdbrain from this moment forth will be permanently barred from the MAGA camp. We don't want them, and we will not accept them because we put America first and always will. And look, folks, even Nikki Haley's spokesperson recognizes the difference between these two statements, the one that Trump made and the one that President Biden made. I mean, look, a tale of two statements. That's Nikki Haley's spokesperson saying that right there. The contrast could not be more clear. By the way, this is Donald Trump's statement from this past weekend, where he says that he believes the Republican Party is 100% MAGA and that there's no longer any room for moderates and they need to leave. Play this clip.
And they say, always trying to demean, well, MAGA really represents 48% of the Republican Party. No, it represents 96% and maybe 100%. We're getting rid of the Romneys of the world. We want to get Romneys and those out.
And that's the message that Donald Trump makes in all of his speeches now. Here he is saying that again at a prior speech, but he says in this other speech, he goes, it's 95% MAGA. Here, play this clip.
When people are not happy with MAGA, because MAGA's taking over. MAGA's, you know, when you hear the fake news when they say, well, MAGA represents 44% of the Republican. No, MAGA represents 95% of the Republican Party. Whenever you hear this stuff, and
And recall, this is what Donald Trump had previously said about Nikki Haley after, as we've seen over and over again, Donald Trump would underperform expectations in the various primaries. And this is what he said after New Hampshire. Here, play this clip.
I felt I should do this because I find in life you can't let people get away with bullshit, okay? You can't. You just can't do that. And when I watched her in the fancy dress that probably wasn't so fancy come up, I said, what's she doing? We won. And she did the same thing last week, but he was much more angry about it than I was. I said, get up there and you let him know.
You know, and again, we saw on Super Tuesday, Donald Trump didn't trounce. It wasn't dominating. I mean, he won. He's the incumbent. He lost Vermont. He lost the District of Columbia over the weekend. But what we've seen consistently throughout all of these primaries is that Donald Trump was underperforming expectations, that there is a large portion, a large percentage of Republicans who say under no circumstances will they ever vote for Donald Trump. I mean, a large portion of Republicans saying that. You know, and then, for example, even in a state like North Carolina, which, by the way, the Republican Party just elected a Holocaust denier as their nominee for governor, they say that, you know, about almost 80% of Nikki Haley voters or in the Republican primary say that they would not simply just vote for the Republican Party just because. And so we've seen that throughout, Donald Trump underperforming expectations. And here, let me just share with you a montage of, very short, of Nikki Haley voters. And this is what we've seen extrapolated at large of people who will never vote for Donald Trump because they know that he's a threat to our democracy. Play this clip.
Anything but Trump.
That was your priority.
That's my priority.
Is that the biggest reason you supported Nikki Haley?
Yeah, I'd say.
Because of Donald Trump?
Yes, yeah.
I would vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump in a heartbeat.
Republican, I am.
What do you do when that is end? If he is the nominee and it's he and Joe Biden, what do you do?
I vote for Joe Biden.
Hi, Nikki Haley.
I think Donald Trump is a threat to the well-being of our country.
She drops out. Would you be disappointed if she endorsed Trump?
She does. I'll vote Democrat.
No.
That's all there is to it.
It's important to me to keep Trump out of office again. Project 2025, I've read it, I've studied it. It's scary, it's frightening.
I've lived in a constitutional democracy all my life. I want to remain that way, and I want my grandchildren to grow up in one, not a dictatorship.
And I'm curious, over the last two elections, have you voted Trump in the past? Was it something where you voted for him, you trusted him, and you were disappointed?
Yes, I voted for him in 2016. I am a registered Republican, and I regretted that vote almost immediately.
You know, so I know this media narrative wants to be, oh, Donald Trump dominant and strong and all of these things. That's just not really comporting with the reality of what the data is reflective of. But more importantly, you know, we can't rely anymore, unfortunately, on the media to be accurate truth tellers. I think it's what's important. You know, they're pushing narrative. What's important is that we, the people, we as Americans, understand our core values with democracy, with empathy, with compassion, with a love of our Constitution, pro-normalcy, that we support our allies, and we come together. As President Biden said, we forge this alliance because we recognize the threats posed by Donald Trump and MAGA. I'm Ben Meiselas. This is the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together. Have a wonderful day.
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.